Hello everyone, I will return reading the book. Yeah, the title is Bankers. Bankers, Mrs. Stone said knowingly, looking from Nancy to Mr. Hamilton to me. She was leaning against the pine table, using her marble rolling pin to quash resistance from a knot of sweetie dove. She stopped and wiped her forehead, leaving a trail of flour clinging to her eyebrows. American at that, she said, to no one in particular. No, Mrs. Townsend, Mr. Hamilton said, scrutinizing the silver salt and pepper dishes for tarnish. While it's true Mrs. Luxton is one of the New York Stevensons, I think you'll find Mr. Luxton is as English as you or I. He hails from the north, according to the Times. Mr. Hamilton peered over his half-rimmed glasses. A self-made man, you know. Mrs. Townsend snorted. Self-made man indeed. I can't have her marrying her family's fortune. Mr. Luxton may have married into a wealthy family, Mr. Hamilton said primly, but he's certainly done his bit to increase the fortune. Banking is a complicated business, knowing who to lend to and who not. I'm not arguing that they don't like a fair dollop of cream off the top, but that's what the business is about. Mrs. Townsend hampered. Let's just hope they see fit to lend the master what he needs, Nancy said. A bit of money would make a welcome change around here, if you ask me. Mr. Hamilton straightened and showed me a stern look, though I had not been the one to speak. As the war had progressed and Nancy had spent more time working on the outside, she had changed. In her duties, she remained efficient as ever, but when we sat around the servants' table and spoke of the world, she was more comfortable in voicing opposition, more likely to question the way things were done. I, on the other hand, had not yet been corrupted by external force, and like a shepherd who decided trees better forsake one lost sheep than raise the flock through inaction, Mr. Hamilton had determined to keep both eyes on me. I'm surprised at you, Nancy, he said, looking at me. You know the master's business. Affairs are not ours to query. I'm sorry, Mr. Hamilton, Nancy said, in a voice without contradiction. But all I know is that ever since Mr. Frederick came to Riverton, he's been closing rooms faster than I can say, not to mention the furniture that's been sold from the West Wing. The mahogany writing Bordeaux Lady Asbury's Danish for poster. She eyed me over her polishing cloth. Dudley, say most of the horses are going too. His lordship is simply being prudent, Mr. Hamilton said, turning to Nancy to better argue his case. The West Room were closed because, with your railway work and Alfred being away, there was far and too much cleaning for young Grace to manage on her own. As for the stables, what need does his lordship have for so many horses with all his fine motor cars? The questions, once launched, he let linger in the cool winter's air. He removed his glasses, huffed on their lenses and wiped them clean with a triumphant theatricality. "If you must know," he said, "stage business complete, glasses restored to his nose, and the stables are to be converted into a brand new garage, the largest in all the country." Nancy was nonplussed. "All the time," she said, lowering her voice. "I've heard whisper in the village." "Nonsense," Mr. Hamilton said. "What kind of whispers?" Mrs. Townsend said, bosom heaving with each or of her pen. "News about the master's business?" At the stairs, the shadows shifted, and a slim woman of middle years stepped into the light. "Miss Starling," Mr. Hamilton faltered. "I didn't see you there. Come on in, and Grace will you make you a cup of tea." He turned to me, mouth tight as the top of a coin purse. "Go on then, Grace," he said, motioning towards the stove. A cup of tea for Miss Starling." Miss Starling cleared her throat before stepping away from the stairwell. She tiptoed towards the nearest chair. Little Leather sat clamped beneath a freckled arm. Lucy Starling was Mr. Frederick's secretary, employed originally for the factory in Ipswich. When the war ended and the family moved permanently to Riverton, she started coming from the village twice a week to work in Mr. Frederick's study. She had lost her fiance on the Ypres Highlands and wore her mourning, like her clothing, with enduring plainness, her grief too reasonable ever to excite great sympathy. Nancy, who knew such things, said it was a great shame she had gone and lost a man prepared to marry her, for lightning did not strike twice, and with her looks and at her age she would almost certainly end up an old maid. "What's more," Nancy added sagely, "we were as well to pay particular attention that nothing got missing from upstairs, as Miss Starling was as likely as not to be looking towards her old age." Nancy were not the only suspicions aroused by Miss Starling. The arrival of this quiet, unassuming, and, by all accounts, conscientious woman created a stir downstairs that now seems unimaginable. It was her place that caused such uncertainty. It wasn't right, Mrs. Townsend said, for a young lady of the middle class to be taking liberties in the main house, setting herself in the master's study, getting about with airs and grace out of step with her position, and thought it was doubtful that Miss Starling, with her sensible mouse brown hair, home-stitched clothing, and cautious smile, could ever be a cause of air and graces. I understood Mrs. Townsend's bother. The lines between upstairs and down had once been clearly and comfortably drawn, but with Miss Starling's arrival old certainties had begun to sift. For while she was not one of them, neither was she one of us. Her presence downstairs that afternoon brought a serious glow to Mr. Hamilton's cheeks and a nervous animation to his fingertips, which now hovered busily about his lapel. The courteous manner of station perplexed Mr. Hamilton especially, for in the poor, unsuspecting woman he perceived an adversary. Tough as butler he was, though as butler he was the senior servant, responsible for overseeing the house management, As personal secretary, she was privy to the shimmering secrets of the family's business affairs.